Your perspectives are self-fulfilling prophecies and they shape your entire life. Your perspectives influence your actions and your actions determine your reality. That's exactly how it works. And this is almost entirely overlooked by most people in society. The fact that I was not taught this in school really boggles my mind. The fact that I had to go out there and find resources and find books and read about this and learn about it from autodidactic learning is really crazy to me and really shows me how far behind we are in terms of our collective understanding of the way that reality works and the way that our mental space works. Understanding this concept is a game changer because, like I said, your perspectives influence your actions influence your reality. They dictate your whole life. So whatever you see the world to be, often cases it ends up being that way. Now, I don't mean to get this confused with downright delusion. Yes, there's still cases where people can believe things and project things about the world that simply aren't true, but they will be true in their experience about the world nonetheless, even in those delusional cases. So just to illustrate this phenomenon, here are a few examples and here are a few big ways that people's perspectives influence their reality and cause a lot of unnecessary suffering. So here's a big one. Here's one that I hear a lot. If your perspective is that the system is rigged and the odds are stacked against you if you weren't born into wealth, and that there's no way for you to get ahead, that is exactly what you will experience. That is what your reality will look like, because you will act in accordance with those beliefs. If you believe that there's no way for you to get ahead, even though you were born into a middle-class home and have lots of opportunity, but because you weren't born into a millionaire family, you weren't born into generational wealth, you believe you can't get ahead. You believe the odds are stacked against you and that capitalism is rigged and X, Y, and Z. You are not going to entertain the idea of potentially starting a business because in your mind, those are the evil people. The people that own the businesses are, the people that are like rigging the system. Now, I'm not saying there's no corruption in many aspects of our society in many sectors, but a different perspective, one that's more empowering, can be one that still acknowledges that there's corruption in many aspects of society and plenty of industries, but one that still acknowledges the fact that there are many opportunities for you to make lots of money in an integrous way that doesn't involve you ripping people off or scamming them or, rigging the system or anything like that. There's so much opportunity out there for you to make money. That is a perspective that will also be reflected in your reality. If you are somebody that holds that perspective, you are going to act in a way where you are going to seek out all these different opportunities. You're going to play around with, different opportunities and see how it is that you like to make money, where you find success in making a lot of money. And because you're of the belief that there's so many opportunities, you're not going to give up when the first way that you try or second or third way fails. You're going to keep going and you're going to be very wealthy. You're going to be successful if you hold that perspective that there's so many ways to make money in society. But on the flip side, like I said, if you hold this perspective that, the odds are stacked against you, you're not even going to try. So that's a black and white example of how your perspective influences the actions that you take, and those actions that you take influence the reality that you live in, the life that you get to live. Here's another one that you might hear a lot. You might believe this yourself. Perhaps you believe in this idea that you're lazy. I'm a lazy person, or I'm not a morning person. Maybe that's something that you've said, you have a habit of saying when people ask you if you're a morning person or whatever. And that's a question that actually kind of gets asked a lot. And your answer is, no, I'm not a morning person. Or maybe you have this idea that you're a lazy person. Well, then you're going to act like a lazy person. You're not going to do hard work. You're not going to try to build a capacity to do hard work. And if you maintain this perspective for your whole life, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. You will be a lazy person for the duration of your life if you maintain that perspective for the duration of your life. But in contrast, you could acknowledge, I haven't really built up the capacity to do hard work. I haven't really figured out how to implement good habits. I haven't really gotten a lot of results and taken a lot of action for what I want my life to look like lately. But that could change if I just learn how and I get the right tools and I seek out the right resources. Because of course, you're not fundamentally a lazy person. Like, it's not in your genetics to be lazy. I mean, to a certain extent, all human beings have it in their genetics to try to get the most out of the least amount of work done. That's why there's a lot of like get rich quick schemes out there that end up fooling a lot of people and making like one guy a shitload of money because, like I said, it's kind of in all of us biologically, in terms of like evolution. It makes sense to try to get the most resources, the most results out of the least amount of work, right? Work smarter, not harder. Fair enough. The most successful people on the planet also have that in them. We're all human. But there's a difference in levels of success, right? There's a whole spectrum. Some people are homeless. Some people are billionaires. Some people are millionaires. Some people make $50,000 a year. Some people make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. You get the point. So the fact that there's a spectrum means that people have harnessed their capacity to do harder work and break out of that laziness more than others. So it's possible. It's possible for you too. You're not fundamentally more lazy than anyone else. Most people, this is a little bit of an aside here. It's a bit of a tangent, but we're going to do it. Most people unknowingly set themselves up for laziness by being exposed to hypernormal stimuli all the time without having to really work for it. So an example of a normal stimuli, something that, is still relatively very, very stimulating, is sex. You have to put in work to get sex, right? You have to go and develop yourself in a way that you're going to be able to attract a mate to then be able to have sex. That takes a lot of time and energy to be able to develop the capacity for these things to go and get that resource. If we want to call sex a resource, whatever, you get what I mean. But instead, you could just pull out your smartphone and not develop any social skills and not develop any kind of, personal hygiene and not develop an attractive body or what most people would consider an attractive body. And instead, you just pull out your smartphone and you have loads and loads of pornography that you can watch all day long. And that's a hypernormal stimuli. That's one example of a hypernormal stimuli. Instagram, Snapchat, right? All these different things where you can see like the whole world digitally in the palm of your hand. And you're not going to have to do any work to really access any of these things. So your neurochemistry gets all messed up. And then when it comes time to doing things that actually yield you some results in your life and, are actually require you to do some work, your brain chemistry is all messed up. Your motivation is just in the shitter because of these hypernormal stimuli that you're exposed to all the time. So it's important to learn how to mitigate the effects of those and to kind of limit the exposure that you give yourself to those things so that you don't destroy your dopamine reward system and ruin your capacity to get anything done. This is something that I learned from the neurobiologist Andrew Huberman and different habit teachers and authors. And I wouldn't have even been able to learn any of those things. Now we're going to take it back to what the video is about. We're going to connect it here. I wouldn't have been able to learn any of those things if I simply subscribed to the belief that I'm a lazy person. I'm not a morning person. I'm not going to be able to wake up at 7 a.m. every day and take a cold shower and have a meditation and a workout to start my day as my morning routine. I'm not a morning person. If I maintained the belief that I was lazy and that I wasn't a morning person, I would not have gone and sought out the resources on how to implement better habits on a more consistent basis, on how to become less addicted to hypernormal stimuli. I would not have sought out any of those resources if I maintained a perspective of I'm lazy. So it's very important not to just accept that belief and let it dictate your whole life and let it dictate your actions or lack thereof. All right, I got a few more examples before we call it a day with this video. Another one that you hear a lot is people talking about how life has no purpose. There's no meaning to life in this kind of nihilistic and melancholic and sort of depressing way. And if that is the perspective that you subscribe to, that is how you're going to see the world. That is going to influence your actions, or again, in this case, lack thereof. You are probably going to go down a very depressive pathway and maybe even regress to like a suicidal state of life. And it will be true for you in your reality that life is meaningless, that it has no purpose. And of course, that's just an idea. The idea of meaning or meaningless is just a concept that humans have created. So, I mean, sure, nothing changes if I, in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scale of the universe, or even just globally, nothing really changes if I were to die tomorrow. That's true, right? The sun is still going to rise. The earth is still going to spin on its axes. And in the grand scale of things, the universe is going to look relatively exactly the same. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't mean that life is meaningless. You can still decide and take on a meaning to your life. And that's the good part, in my opinion, is that fundamentally, sure, if you want to say life is meaningless, I could agree with that. The universe doesn't change if I die tomorrow. However, I can leave an impact on the world. I can adopt a meaning. I can adopt a purpose. And in fact, I encourage you to. Meaning and purpose are very important parts to us feeling fulfilled and thriving in this lifetime. You get to decide what your meaning is, and it's going to make you feel excited about life. You're going to be going on your hero's journey and continuing your hero's journey every day that you're alive. You're going to be motivated. You're going to be excited to get out of bed in the morning when you adopt a meaning and a purpose to your life to add value to mankind. So you can see where that perspective, influencing your actions, influencing your reality, can make all the difference in the world in your quality of life. Anything that affects your reality can obviously impact your quality of life. But that's a really good example that really hits it home, for me at least, hopefully for you too. All right, last one. A lot of people have this perspective of like, it's me versus the world. And maybe they think like everybody's out to get them. Maybe you're one of these people. Maybe you know some of these people. If you think it's you versus the world and that everybody's like out to get you and that the world's like a mean and cruel and nasty place, that's how you're going to experience the world. That is the world that you will live in. Because the way you act will reflect that back to you. Because you're probably not a very pleasant person to be around if you think everyone's out to get you and the world's a terrible place. You're probably not so fun to be around. So you're not really going to have a lot of pleasant relationships in your life. In fact, people are probably going to maybe even specifically treat you poorly because you treat them poorly, or you always have like this chip on your shoulder. So it's going to feel like everyone hates you and that everyone sucks because of the way you act. So you can see where that is a self-fulfilling prophecy as well. Instead, if you believe that, sure, there's lots of troubled people in the world that have been through a lot and that are really struggling, but the world is still full of kindness and love and compassion, you will act in a way that kindness and compassion that the world is indeed full of, and all the love that there is, it will find you more frequently because you will act in a way where you are giving that out. And like attracts like, right? This is like fundamentally true in the chemistry of our universe. Like attracts like, right? Oil and water repel because it's polar and non-polar, but water and water, they stick together because they're both polar. So kindness and love and compassion attract more kindness and love and compassion. And hatred attracts more hatred. And if you are kind and loving and compassionate, even when you do run into the hatred, you will understand it more. And because you understand that this is a person that is struggling, that has been having a hard day, they've had a hard life, you will be able to meet that person with kindness and love and compassion. And the chances of them giving kindness and compassion back to you are going to be a lot higher because of that. I remember I was in the park once and there was this guy going around screaming. And he was screaming in a way where he was doing it to get like a reaction out of people. He was kind of looking around, seeing if, people were looking. And he was screaming very loud, but it was in a way where it was almost like operatic. Like he was kind of like singing. But, it was on the border of like screaming and singing. But he did have this like very whole, rich tone to his voice. And if you live in Toronto, you probably know this guy. And you could tell this is a troubled individual. But I was with a friend of mine, and this guy was going around kind of bugging people. People were like getting up and walking away. He was making them uncomfortable. And my friend, in this crowded park, he extended a hand to him. And I remember this, an open hand, not like a finger, an open hand. He extended it his way, and he yelled back, "Thank you. You are beautiful." And I don't know what compelled my friend to do this. It kind of caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting it, but I really I admired it right away. And the man stopped shouting or singing, whatever he was doing. And he looked at my friend and his expression changed. And he said, "Thank you. I'm sorry if I'm too loud." And my friend said, "It's okay." And that was the end of that interaction between the two of them. And that was also the end of that man yelling. He left and didn't bother anybody else in that park right after that. And he had been, screaming and shouting and singing, if you want to call it that, for like 10, 15 minutes. You could hear him from like a mile away. And then we finally saw him. And then that interaction happened. And it was really beautiful to see how that kindness and compassion that was extended from a buddy of mine really brought out some kindness and compassion from this man. And it's worth noting, on a different occasion, I've seen people respond to that man trying to get a reaction out of people in a way that's saying like, "Hey man, fuck off, you're bothering everyone." And I've seen that guy respond in a very brutal and threatening and just rage-filled way. So to see him respond kindly when he was told, "Thank you, you're beautiful," it was really kind of a powerful moment for me. That really stuck with me. And I hope that story really drives home the point that I'm trying to make here, that your perspectives influence your actions influence reality itself. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. That's it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to give it a like, subscribe to my channel for more content like this, and let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I hope you utilize this principle to reshape your life if you are not happy with the way that it currently looks. I know this is something that I try to constantly remind myself, and it has served me very well. Thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good one.